I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Emily, for about 5 years now. We got engaged last year, and honestly, I thought things were pretty good. We weren't perfect, we had our fights, sure, but I believed she was the one. She was smart, beautiful, ambitious. I was head over heels, and I figured she felt the same way. Looking back, maybe there were signs I missed. Little things. She started changing her phone password without telling me, would get strangely defensive when I asked questions, and sometimes I'd catch her staring at her phone a little too long like she was hiding something. I brushed it off at first, convincing myself she was just being private or stressed about work. Personally, I didn't want to think the worst, especially with the wedding coming up. But deep down, I knew something was off. The first major red flag was about 2 months ago. She started canceling plans last minute, saying she had to work late or meet with clients, which honestly sounded like bullshit. She'd be texting or calling someone. All the time, always hiding her screen. I'd see her giggling or smirking when she thought I wasn't looking, and I started to get suspicious. Still, I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I loved her, and I was stupid enough at that point to think that maybe she was just stressed or needing space. Then, a couple of weeks ago, I found her phone lying face down on the kitchen table. I couldn't resist. I picked it up and started going through her recent messages. I wasn't snooping, I just wanted to see if she was really working late like she kept saying. What I saw made my stomach drop. There were texts, photos, even voice messages, and they weren't innocent. They were about sex, explicit stuff. She was talking about Jake, her coworker, like he was her everything. The thing is, she's been calling him her best friend for months. Tell me about their deep conversations, how they always had each other's backs, how she trusted him more than anyone. But these messages, I swear, they sounded different. They reeked of something more than friendship. I saw pictures of her in bed with him, both of them half-dressed, and messages talking about sneaking around, how they couldn't keep their hands off each other. I couldn't believe it. My wife had been cheating on me, lying to my face, and all the while calling him her best friend. I immediately felt rage, betrayal, a sick kind of pain I can't even put into words. I confronted her that night. I showed her the messages. She lost her shit, started calling me crazy, saying I was misinterpreting everything. She said Jake was just a coworker, a bro, and that I was paranoid, but I knew better. There was no way she could spin her way out of that one. That was the moment I realized I'd been blind, that the woman I loved had been cheating on me with someone I thought was just her friend, and she'd been lying about the whole thing for months. The shock was overwhelming. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. All the plans, the future we talked about, the trust, gone in an instant. I spent that night awake, trying to process what I'd seen. It didn't matter if she called me names, told me I was crazy, or that she loved me. The truth was written all over her phone. I'd never felt this hurt before. It was like discovering the person you swore to spend your life with had been living a lie right under your nose. And the worst part, she called it nothing. Just a stupid mistake, like it was nothing compared to what I was feeling. That made it worse. I knew I had to figure out what to do next, but I was completely lost in a sea of anger and heartbreak. After I saw everything, I didn't sleep that night. I just kept staring at the messages, the photos, trying to make sense of it all. I felt sick, betrayed, like the ground had shifted beneath my feet. I kept asking myself how I could have missed the signs, how I could have been so blind. Emily was so good at hiding it. She was bitchy, manipulative. She'd lie her ass off and try to make me feel like I was overreacting. And she did it so convincingly. That's the thing with people like her. They're good at hiding the truth behind a mask of charm and bullshit. The next morning, I knew I couldn't just pretend I hadn't seen it. I had to confront her again, get some answers. I wasn't about to let her brush this off. I waited until she woke up, then sat her down in the living room. She looked at me with that familiar smirk, like she knew she could lie her way out of anything. But I was already done playing her game. I threw the phone on the table and said, "Explain this, Emily. Tell me what the hell is going on." She looked at it, then back at me, her eyes narrowing. She started with her usual deflection. "It's nothing, just some stupid flirtation. Jake's just a friend, I swear. We've never done anything. You're overreacting like always." I didn't buy it. I told her I'd seen the messages, the pictures, everything. that she'd been lying to me for months, calling him her best friend while secretly screwing around. Her face twisted into that bitchy, angry look she often wore when she was caught. She spat back, "You're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. Maybe I've been stressed. Maybe I needed someone to talk to. It's not what you think. Jake's just a good guy, and I don't owe you an explanation for my friendships." That was the moment I realized how deep her bullshit ran. She's always been the kind of woman who manipulates her way out of everything, always spinning some lie to cover her tracks. I felt so angry I could barely speak. I told her I was done accepting her lies, that I was sick of her sneaking around. Then I told her I knew about the sex, the affair, the whole damn thing. Her face changed then. She tried to deny it, but I could see the guilt in her eyes. She started crying, but I didn't feel sorry for her. I just felt numb, like I'd been punched again, only this time there was no hope left. Her reaction didn't surprise me. She's always been bitchy, a real piece of work, and she's the master of twisting things around to make herself look innocent. She called me crazy, said I was paranoid, that I was reading too much into some stupid messages. She begged me to believe her, said she loved me, that it was just a mistake, a one-time thing. The thing is, I knew better. I knew that once a cheat, always a cheat. And I knew her words were just more lies, a way to keep me from leaving her. I felt a cold rage building inside me. I knew I couldn't stay with her, not after this. The betrayal was too deep, the lies too thick. But I also felt this crushing sadness. I loved her, or at least I thought I did. That's what tore me apart the most. How could someone I trusted so much do this to me? How could she lie to my face, call me crazy for suspecting her, then turn around and cheat behind my back? It was like my whole world was crumbling, and I didn't even know who I was anymore. All I knew for sure was that I couldn't keep living in this lie. That day, I decided I was done with Emily. I didn't know what was coming next, but I knew I wasn't going to be a fool anymore. The day I decided to confront her was the day everything started to spiral even further out of control. I told Emily I needed some space, that I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. She begged me to stay, to listen, but honestly I was done listening to her lies. I needed to process what I'd found and figure out what I was going to do next. I left that morning and went to my buddy Dave's place, figured I'd get some perspective, maybe talk it out. But deep down, I already knew what I had to do. I couldn't stay with her, not after what I saw. The betrayal cut too deep. I spent the next few days trying to piece everything together, battling all these conflicting feelings. One moment I was furious, the next I was crushed, then angry again. It was like my brain was in a war zone. What hurt the most was how she kept lying, even after I laid everything out. She'd call me a crazy, jealous husband, say I was overreacting, call Jake her best friend, and insist that nothing sexual ever happened, even though I had proof. She'd look at me with that bitchy smirk, like she didn't care, like she was better than me. And maybe she was. I mean, she always was a manipulative bitch, but I didn't realize how far she'd go until it was all laid bare. One night she texted me, claiming she loved me and that she'd made a huge mistake. She said she'd never meant for it to go this far, that she was just stressed, overwhelmed, like that was supposed to make me feel sorry for her. I looked at the message and I just laughed bitterly. I told her I didn't believe her anymore, that I didn't trust her and I never would again, that I was done being a fool, that I was going to fix this, even if that meant hurting her back. Yeah, I know revenge sounds petty, but at that point I just wanted her to feel what I felt. I wanted her to realize that what she did wasn't going to just slide away quietly. I wasn't sure how I was going to do it yet, but I knew I had to make her see that she couldn't get away with cheating on me, calling it just sex or drunken mistakes, and then lying her ass off. So here's the thing. I started planning. I wanted her to see that I wasn't the fool she thought I was. If she thought she could just lie and still have me, she was dead wrong. I started digging into her phone more, looking for clues about Jake. Whenever she was out, I tracked her social media, tried to catch her in the act. I also reached out to some of her coworkers, just to get a sense of what kind of person she really was around others. Turns out she was a lot more manipulative than I gave her credit for. She'd twist stories, spin lies, and make herself look like the victim. I decided that I'd catch her in a lie, expose her for good, and make her regret ever messing around behind my back. I didn't want to just dump her. I wanted to make sure she paid for what she did. I didn't want to be the guy who gets cheated on and just walks away. I wanted her to feel the sting of betrayal, to understand what it was like to be completely blindsided. That's when I started putting my plan into motion. I had to be strategic, patient. She thought she was clever, but I was about to show her that I was just as clever, maybe more. Deep down, I still loved her, or at least I thought I did. But that love was turning into something darker, a mixture of heartbreak, anger, and a desire for some kind of justice. I knew I couldn't stay in limbo forever. I had to decide whether to fight for the marriage or cut ties for good. Either way, I was going to make sure she knew I wasn't some fool anymore. The betrayal had opened my eyes, and I was done being naive. Now I was playing for keeps. The plan started to take shape in my mind, and I knew I had to be careful. Emily was good at hiding her tracks, but I was determined to catch her off guard. I didn't want her to suspect I was onto her. I needed concrete proof, something irrefutable. So I started setting traps, little things that would make her slip up. I'd leave my phone around, send her fake texts, and see if she reacted differently. I also enlisted a friend of mine, Kevin, who had some experience with this kind of stuff, to help me track her social media activity more discreetly. The first real test came when I followed her to a coffee shop one afternoon. She told me she was working late again, but I saw her slip out the back with her phone pressed to her ear, her eyes darting around to make sure no one was watching. She was talking to someone. I couldn't hear what she said, but the way she was acting, it was clear she was hiding something. I stayed hidden behind a corner, watching her get into a car with Jake. That was the moment I knew I had enough to move forward. I waited for the right opportunity. Emily was leaving town for a weekend conference, supposedly for work. Perfect. She thought she'd be free to do whatever she wanted, but I was already planning to confront her before she left. I wanted her to know I knew the truth before she disappeared for a few days. When she packed her bag that Friday evening, I slipped her phone out of her purse. I knew she'd be suspicious if I outright asked for it, so I had to be sneaky. That night I went through her messages again. This time I found things I didn't see before, more explicit texts, plans to meet up, even a warning she gave Jake not to get caught. She'd been planning this for a while, and she was confident she could get away with it. But I had proof now. My hands trembled as I looked at everything. I felt a mixture of rage and sadness. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was her actively lying, sneaking around, and using me like I was some fool she could manipulate. The next morning I woke up early, packed my own bag, and left for a hotel. I didn't want her to suspect anything, so I told her I was going camping with some friends. I knew she'd be suspicious if I just disappeared, so I kept it simple. Meanwhile, I was planning my confrontation, timing it just right. I wanted her to come home, find her phone, and realize I knew everything. I wanted her to see the mess she'd made for herself. I stayed quiet for a few hours, just waiting for her to come back. When she finally did, she was her usual bitchy self, smug, dismissive, and acting like she had nothing to hide. That's when I handed her her phone, laid out all the evidence I'd collected, and told her I knew about everything. Her face twisted into something ugly, like she'd been caught red-handed. Her reaction was instant: denial, anger, accusations that I was stalking her, that I was trying to ruin her life. But I wasn't going to back down. I told her I didn't care what she said anymore, that I had enough proof to end this farce. She kept calling me a jealous idiot, said I was ruining her reputation, but I saw the panic in her eyes. That was the moment I knew I'd hit her where it hurt. I didn't just want to leave her. I wanted her to realize she couldn't lie her way out of this. And honestly, I felt a strange sense of relief, like I finally had some control after feeling so powerless for so long. I knew this was just the beginning of what was going to be a very difficult chapter, but I also knew I'd finally taken back some of my dignity. I was sick of being played for a fool. Now I just needed to figure out how to move on from here. After I laid everything out on the table, Emily's bitchy facade cracked just a little. Her eyes darted around, trying to find some way to spin her lies again. But she knew I had her dead to rights. The evidence was undeniable now. She started yelling, calling me crazy, saying I'd always been suspicious, that I was ruining everything. Her voice was high-pitched, full of that bitchy edge she always used when she was desperate. She told me I was overreacting, that she loved me, and that this Jake thing was just a stupid mistake, a moment of weakness she'd regret for the rest of her life. I didn't buy any of it. I looked her right in the eyes and told her she was a liar, that she'd been cheating on me for months, calling him her best friend while secretly screwing around. She scoffed, rolled her eyes, and then threw the "you're just jealous" line at me. That's when I snapped. I told her I wasn't jealous, I was furious. Furious that she could be so bitchy and manipulative, so cold and callous, and still think she could walk all over me. I told her I was done. Done with her bullshit, her lies, her best friend Jake, and most of all, done with pretending to be okay with this. I was sick of her calling me paranoid when I knew damn well what she was doing. I said I was leaving, that I was going to file for divorce, and that I never wanted to see her face again. That's when she started crying, real tears this time, but even that felt fake. Like she was just trying to control the situation, trying to guilt me back into staying. And honestly, I felt empty. All the anger and betrayal were like a heavy weight on my chest. I'd never felt so betrayed, so stupid for not seeing it earlier. I kept replaying everything in my head. The secret texts, the late nights, how she'd call Jake her best friend and act like they were just pals. Meanwhile, in the shadows, they were screwing around and lying to my face. It hit me hard how much trust she'd destroyed, how much of my life I'd wasted believing in her. I knew I couldn't stay anymore. I packed my stuff that night, stayed at that hotel for a few days, just trying to breathe and think clearly. My mind kept racing, but one thing I was sure of, I wasn't going to let her manipulate me into staying. She'd broken that trust, and I had to accept that I'd never get it back. I'd loved her, or at least I thought I did, but love doesn't survive betrayal like this. I had to choose what was best for me, even if it hurt like hell. That's when I finally made the decision. I'd file for divorce. I'd cut her out of my life, no matter how much it hurt. I realized that her bitchy, manipulative ways weren't worth salvaging. And honestly, I'd learned a lot from this whole nightmare. About trusting too easily, about reading the signs too late, about what it means to be betrayed by someone you love. I guess I'd always wanted to believe in her, in us, but that trust was gone. Now all I had left was the wreckage and a resolve to move on, stronger and wiser than before. In the aftermath, everything changed. The house that once felt like a home now just echoed with silence. I moved out, left her to deal with her mess. She called and texted, mostly angry, mostly begging, but I didn't respond. I knew she was trying to manipulate her way back, but I was done. The trust was shattered, and no amount of apologies or tears could fix what she'd broken. Looking back, I realize how naive I was to think I could ignore the signs. Maybe I was blind because I loved her, or maybe I just didn't want to believe that the woman I married could be so ruthless and manipulative. But the truth is, I was just too trusting. I should have seen the warning signs, should have pushed harder before it all blew up in my face. Maybe if I'd been more suspicious earlier, I could have saved myself from this heartbreak. Now I'm healing, slowly but surely. The pain is still there, but it's less raw. I've learned a lot about myself, about how important it is to trust your instincts, to pay attention to the little red flags no matter how much you love someone. I've come to accept that sometimes people change, and not for the better. Not everyone is worth fighting for, especially when they're actively working against you. What I want to say to anyone reading this: trust is everything, but it's fragile. Don't turn a blind eye to the signs of betrayal. If someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Don't make excuses. Because in the end, the only person who's truly responsible for your happiness is you. And sometimes, walking away is the bravest thing you can do. I may have lost her, but I gained clarity. And honestly, that's worth more than any lie or betrayal could ever be.